In a labyrinth of the undead, Geldwood soldiers are forced to fall back with their wounded when several of their number fall to the corpse god, a necromancer without peer. Sir Shagrua Edith Lugrid, the church's Calamity Crusher, arrives with Recurria Lo-Fi Lardo leading his support team of her fellow priests and priestesses. Shagrua confronts the corpse god alone while his team remain on standby. Corpse god fends off Shagrua's attacks before converting souls of the deceased into magic, from those dead whose bones are strewn about him and, to the horror of the Geldwood men contingent outside the labyrinth, from the land around them. With his magic restocked, corpse god calls forth a dragon bound to him. Shagrua cleaves the dragon in twain with one mighty strike. He and corpse god exchange more blows until corpse god assembles the strewn bones into an army of armed articulated skeletons. Shagrua recalls how his village had burned and how the villagers' souls blamed him for his demise prior to the Geldwood knights taking him in, and how the souls of those he and Geldwood slaughtered over the years similarly decried him. His evil eyes blaze when he informs the corpse god that he can see all the souls that corpse god has sacrificed. The skeletons advance. Shagrua disarticulates some with a fireball and dislodges stalactites with a second, sending them crashing onto the skeleton still standing. With a direct sword strike to corpse god's ribcage, he reveals a brain in a jar suspended by chains. This is corpse god's true form, that for which he has sacrificed so many souls. All lives are my playthings, corpse god says, much to Shagrua's ire, which he further incenses by insinuating that Shagrua enjoys his victims' resentful wails, that the two of them are alike at playing the Grim Reaper. Shagrua ignores the provocation for the variegated spell that corpse god weaves. This is unrecognizable magic, and therefore magic he recognizes must be stopped. Recurria magically enhances Shagrua as he charges forward, Calamity Crusher crushing Calamity with a spell and a final strike. Magic engulfs the room when Shagrua's sword pierces the spell. A teenager replays this hazy moment from where he lies prone in an alley, sure that he cast a spell but unsure if it activated. He opens his eyes to a gray sky and unfamiliar walls on either side of him. His arms are frail and his hands small, one of which he brings to his painful bloodied neck when speaking proves difficult. Standing, however, he can manage, so he walks out of the alley into an urban square. Everything from the architecture and transportation to the clothes and the language is utterly foreign to him. Takumi Kuruya remotely moves his drone to get a better look at the teen, then calls someone to cancel the retrieval, their target lives despite his slit throat. The teen walks slowly as he takes in the incomprehensible signs in a video that features idol Ryuma Kanagi. His first thought is that it must be a projection spell, but he senses no magic at work. Eventually he sits to rest on steps that lead to Shinjuku Station. That the children passing by are happy and hail implies the country is a peaceful one, and then he thinks of the country he has left behind, of a memory involving an undead and children around a cooking pot. Regardless of whether he can return to that country, he hopes it has a future. Two Shinjuku policemen greet him in the land's language and swiftly realize he cannot understand them, only he is starting to, he realizes, for the more they talk the more he understands. This body's brain knows the language after all. The older policeman inquires into the blood on his neck and shirt, the younger asks for the teen's name. So, this is Japanese, the teen says haltingly, his throat still strained. This body's name is Polka Shinoyama. As the policemen are finally realizing the gravity of Polka's neck wound, Misaki Sakamiya alights on the younger's head, says she is glad that Polka is all right, grabs his hand, and sprints away. Kozaburo Eris observes the two from a distance and asks Tsubaki Iwanom if something's up. Something is always up in Shinjuku, replies Iwanom. Once Misaki has led Polka into an alley, she introduces herself and asks if Polka remembers her. He tries to, which pains him. Misaki shakes him down to confirm he is alive, then declares that she will kill him for a second time, wondering, like Takumi, how a crowbar to Polka's neck somehow did not suffice the first time. Crowbar, neck, now Polka remembers. He takes off running and Misaki gives chase. Takumi, observing via his drone, sits back and questions what Misaki's client is thinking by putting a hit on a 16-year-old. Still, what matters more than a client's motives is a client's money, and for the sake of that money, Polka needs to stay dead this time around. Polka catches his breath inside an abandoned building, limited by his body's weak strength and near total absence of magic, but magic seems scarce in both air and land. The air has a paucity of magical elements, and if the land has spirits, he can hardly sense them. Without magic, he cannot treat his fresh wound. Without magic, he cannot treat a fatal wound. Misaki enters the window under which Polka sits and flings 5 knives at him that he dodges. He uses a stray piece of pipe to parry her crowbar again and again, each time just barely until he can run past her, motivated by the peaceful land that the children's smiles promised, and the children he left behind. Misaki lodges a throwing knife in his right calf. Polka rips the knife out, flings it close-shaven past Misaki's face, and limps as fast as he can around a corner and into the first room whose door he comes across. The room has a high ceiling to accommodate the hooks and ropes that hang from it. Barrels, tubs, sacks and other equipment clutter the floor. Misaki explains that the building is infamous in her line of work. Polka lurches away, then falls as Misaki injures his right thigh, as an alleged major execution ground for the Yakuza and that ghosts and gangsters haunt it. Such talk of ghosts and gangsters is meant to scare Polka. Perhaps it would if Polka still inhabited his own body, but Polka's possessor possesses the evil eye. He can see the souls of the Yakuza's victims strung up on chains, lying in the dissolving tub, on the ground, in the corner. That Polka's possessor retains his evil eye in a different body affirms the possessor's suspicion that the evil eye is a power of the soul rather than anatomy. Polka opines that the Yakuza treated lives carelessly and that Misaki ought to treat them with greater care, eyeing the souls of her victims who haunt her at this very moment. These souls scatter as she dashes toward Polka once more. Polka, the corpse god, converts these into magic and, with a single digit of a monstrously large skeletal hand, impales Misaki and pins her to a pillar. Takumi gasps. Near the shattered jar, corpse god's brain, and the skeletal husk that corpse god once embodied, Shigurua confides in Rikuria that he is uncertain if he saw his job to completion since corpse god had succeeded in activating his spell. In the moment, the spell had resembled teleportation magic. In the seconds Shigurua spied corpse god's soul with his evil eye, it vanished. Rikuria kindly says that all traces of corpse god have vanished from this world according to a report from the observation unit. You saved the world, she insists. Sir Shigurua replies that he can only hope she is right. Corpse god's mind has been defogged, which he informs the limp Misaki of in strong, unhampered tones. He is glad that his spell brought him to a peaceful land and that Misaki brought him to a place full of magical power, which he demonstrates by replenishing his own with the souls from the Yakuza's past. He and Misaki, he says, shall together play at being the Grim Reaper. When the corpse god was still a human child in the other world. His parents sold him to the royal palace's sorcerers. He studied necromancy and was dispatched to various battlefields as a necromancer over the decades, until the kingdom itself eventually crumbled, never realizing that he himself was turning into the undead. Wanting nothing but peace and quiet, he withdrew to a secluded coal mine for some time. When 5 hungry children took refuge there, he offered them a rib cage full of fruit and earned their trust. The group would live together in harmony for several years, with the eldest girl falling in love with the corpse god as a young woman. The Geldwood Church, believing the children to be corrupted via the necromancer, granted them salvation by impaling the 4 younger ones and delivering the young woman a fatal wound. With his loved ones dead, the corpse god took his revenge on the Geldwood soldiers who had killed them and would wreak revenge on the organization for 100 years thereafter. In time, the abandoned coal mine would warp into a labyrinth of writhing undead. There, he spends centuries waiting for someone capable of killing him to arrive. When such a person did, the corpse god succeeded in the secret art of reincarnation. In the present he is seen reflecting on his past. The corpse god stares at Misaki Sakamiya and reaffirms his determination to survive, for the sake of his peaceful life. He wonders what continent he is on and how many years it took for his reincarnation to work. He had expected to be reborn in the corpse of one of his fallen kinsmen, and thus finds his current circumstances strange. For now, he decides his first priority is extracting information from the assassin Misaki, still impaled against the wall. Acknowledging her skills, he summons his magic and prepares to overpower her. However, when she does not react, he is stunned to realize that she is dead. Confused, he uses one of his skeletal hands to shake her body upside down, but he finds no restorative elixirs on her person. Compared to his home country's assassins, who could take 20 rounds, that she died simply by being impaled through the stomach once is hard for him to believe. More concerning, however, is the fact that he will not be able to prove he was defending himself against an assassin if she truly is dead. His peaceful life will be over before it began should the guards pursue him. This, coupled with the embarrassment from realizing he said now, let's pick up where we left off to a dead body, leads him to bury his face in his hands and groan. At his desk, Takumi Kuruya, still monitoring the situation via a drone, grips his head and lets out a groan of his own. When Clarissa Karaki calls him to ask why the mission is taking longer than usual, he sends her the video data from his drone and asks her to confirm its unbelievable contents. The chapter flashes back to Misaki as a young girl, smiling with innocent joy as her mother picks her off the floor. Her parents remark that she is always smiling, and that they hope she finds happiness with those whose happiness is earned from her smiles. A few years later into her childhood, Misaki witnesses a man stab her parents to death. She seeks out this man once she becomes an assassin in her own right. While the man recognizes her as the assassin Zaki, he does not remember her from when she was a little girl. As Misaki shoots a few nails into his hand with nail gun, the man warns her that she will not get away with this even if she is Clarissa's favorite. Misaki replies that Clarissa specifically asked Misaki to kill him, since he has been killing too many innocents as of late. She asks him if she looks as happy as he did back then, triggering his memory of her, and he asks if she kills other killers out of some sort of revenge or justice kick. Misaki denies his accusation of hypocrisy as she shoots a few more nails into his other hand, explaining that his laughter and amusement while killing her parents had simply made her wonder if the act of killing could really be all that fun. With that said, she asks him if he thinks she kills good people and if he is a good person. He hesitates, tries to affirm that he is, but cannot finish his sentence as Misaki slams a pipe into his mouth and asserts that he is not. In an immediate flashback, Misaki stares at a photo of Polka Shinoyama at Utukoru and informs Clarissa that she wants to take the job. Clarissa points out that Polka is just a kid, but Misaki replies that she doesn't mind. She has already achieved her life's goal, and now wants to find out just how fucked up she can really be. Misaki successfully carries out Polka's assassination, and later on reflects that she had no problem murdering him, which means she can kill both the good and the wicked without qualms. As she loiters on the chain-link fence on a building's rooftop, she muses that someone like her should not be allowed to live, that no one will ever be truly happy, and that the only thing she has yet to test is whether or not she can kill herself. So saying, she steps off the chain-link fence. However, when her cell phone rings, she grabs the chain links and flips up to the top of the fence once more to answer Takumi's call. She informs him that her life was reaching its climax when he rang, and looks up to find a drone when he says that he saw. He continues that she cannot die without finishing her work, informing her that the kid whose throat she slit is currently walking the streets like nothing happened. Surprised, she asks if she really was not able to kill him after all. He confirms that her job is not over yet. In the present, Misaki hazily recalls a conversation she once had with Takumi and realizes that her life has genuinely flashed before her eyes. She opens said eyes to find the corpse god staring at her, and he high-fives the drone over their success. With her memory returning, Misaki shamelessly yanks up the hem of her skirt to check her stomach. Despite her clear memory of being skewered, her stomach is smooth and unbroken. The drone shorts out at her exposed chest, though she swiftly pulls her shirt down and asks why she is still alive. Catching the drone as it falls, the corpse god mumbles that she was more reborn via magic than returned to life. Misaki cocks her head, looking over at several men aiming handguns their way, and then asks what is going on. Clarissa approaches them, flanked by two guards, and Misaki asks in surprise why she is here. Pulling Misaki close to her chest, Clarissa affirms that she cannot find a pulse and that Misaki is cold to the touch. With a smile and a thumbs up, she confirms that Misaki is completely dead. The corpse god adds that in Misaki's language, one would probably call her a zombie. Misaki is left nonplussed.